We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Aligned, and it is the podcast for chiropractors, where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com. You are joining Wake Up Aligned podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shannon McMurtry. So honored to bring a very special episode to you today. You know, we've been doing this about a year, and I can hardly believe that. The year has flown by. We have covered a lot of ground. We have got more ground to cover in the years to come. But we have so much enjoyed connecting with you, the listener, through this podcast. And occasionally we'll get feedback, and we appreciate all the great words of encouragement and knowing how this has impacted you. I mean, at the end of the day, that is our want. That is what we're doing this for. That is the purpose. We want to impact you in your ability to serve people, reach your potential, and that's the whole reason that we gather and go through this effort. Occasionally, we will talk about certain subjects that generates more feedback or more thumbs up or attaboys and thank yous. And we thought it appropriate to bring those or some of those topics to you today and just celebrate the year that was with you. So we are going to do a best of podcast. And again, these things are really things that sparked conversation and sparked feedback from you. As you listen to these, think about your year. We're thinking about our year. And we hope that this year has been a good year for you. I know it's not January or December, so it's not where we normally talk about the end of the year, but this year of effort has been wonderful for us. We hope it's been a blessing for you, and we're really looking forward to further engagement with you next year as well. Have a lot of ideas that we've talked about, and always receptive to ideas coming from you. And you can reach us at mailbag@amcfamily.com. We encourage you to reach out to us. We love your feedback. We love your suggestions. Keep them coming. So without further ado, from your host, Dr. Shannon McMurtry, Tom Owen, and our producer, Ryan Snacks Miller, enjoy our best of.
Episode 23. Don't kid yourself.
We were at an AMC boot camp. This had to be late 98 and early 99. This was very early on for me. And he told the Dallas Stroshine story. Now, for those of you who've never been in a class with Dr. Tom Owen, he told a lot of stories. But the stories he told all had a principle or a reinforcement of a concept, and he gave you that story so you could latch onto that and have that recall with it. Well, this Dallas Stroshine story was the principle behind I never kid myself. So Dr. Tom is in school at Palmer College, and he's sitting beside or around another chiropractic school student who is blind. And Dr. Owen called it a pecker board. So he's taking the notes on this board, I guess typing up Braille notes as the instructors are doing their thing and driving your dad crazy, right? He's like, I can't hear the professor talk. Can you shut that thing down, whatever? And this guy was totally blind. I guess had been blind his whole life. But from the interaction that the other classmates had with Dallas, everybody had the same opinion of the man. He was positive and uplifting and fun, and he, if you just didn't see his cane or how he interacted, you wouldn't even know he was really blind. He would cross the street by himself, and one day your dad said, "Hey, Dallas, how do you do that?" And he says, "I can feel the vibrations of the cars and the cobblestones in the soles of my feet." And your dad thought that was just the coolest thing. He would race other people up the stairs to the bathrooms during breaks between classes. I mean, just a real character. Well, it came about where they had a psychology class, and the professor, the instructor in the class, actually, I don't know if it was intended or just a spur of the moment thing, but called on Dallas Stroshine and said, Dallas, here you are with this tremendous affliction. You're blind. You're totally blind. And yet, from your classmates, you have the best attitude of anybody in the school. To what do you attribute that? And Dr. Owen said, I thought that was a pretty good question. So I perked up and I tuned in, and Dallas cleared his throat and he said, oh, that's easy, Doc. First of all, your dad said, that's easy. I'm totally blind, but I have this great attitude. Sure, that's easy. Everybody does that. Dallas says, that's easy, Doc, or that's easy, Professor. I never kid myself. And that was a big, big lesson that your dad was exposed to that day and took to heart and applied in his own life and taught others to apply in theirs, including mine. And we have a class that we actually do at our summit training weekends called Breakthrough. And that is the class on the schedule. But for the instructors in that class, we call that the Dallas Stroshine class. Because if we're going to break through your issue, your problem, your hurdle, your barrier, we have to first start with, are you kidding yourself about that? And a lot of us are. We go through life kidding ourselves about our practice or our attitude or our effort or our concepts or our humility, right? So I hope that was a good rendition of that story. I hope I did it justice. But we are going to explore that concept of never kidding yourself. Where would you like to start today, Tom?
I think I'll start with just the realities, right? The reality of where almost every listener, even if you're an Align member, even if you're, I'll throw a shout out to my good friend Henri Dalliez, right? Henri Dalliez has been around almost as long as you have, Dr. Shannon. And yet,
yes, sir.
And yet, my good friend Dr. Dalliez never kids himself, right? And every listener can take on the realities of that. I doubt there's any listener out there short of a blue coat, maybe folks like maybe Amanda Austin could go along with this, but I doubt anybody knows the depths of the AMC system and the sub-level, the subconscious level content that's there, as well as Dalliez. But the realities are that I spoke of came to light at our recent FAB event, right? Now there's Dr. Oz, along with the likes of Dr. Jared Whalen and Dr. Kelly Henry. I mean, these are some heavyweights, folks. These are people that are prepared to take you into the millionaire mindset of what abundance looks like. Now, see, when I say millionaire mindset, everybody just goes straight to the money, the million. But you don't get $1 million by having a 5-cent head on your shoulders. You have to walk with a level of abundance. You carry yourself with a level of abundance. You walk with confidence. You walk with an understanding, and you never kid yourself. So if you want the millionaire mindset is always teachable. A millionaire mindset is always humble. A millionaire mindset always has the willingness to work. And when I said it came to light was there's Dr. Oz and Dr. Whalen and Dr. Henry launching the Apex program, right? The millionaire mindset. And we had, 20-something folks take the Apex test, right? Gauging where you are because there's no reason for you to go that direction if you don't have a measuring stick of where you are. All right. Now, we had some pretty good heavyweights in there. I won't name names because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but there were some heavyweights in there. There was actually a couple of blue coats in there that took the test, right?
Yep.
Would you like to know that nobody aced that test? No one aced that test. And then the people that think they are ready for the Apex program, there was some just of the basics of patient compliance. It was very alarming to me and Dr. Osborne, who looked those tests over. Dr. Osborne did all the grading, but I got to review all of it. It was very alarming to find that, I'll give you one. Let's just give one component and we can talk about those components if you'd like. But the fact that almost the vast majority of them could not name the 6 S's. Now, if you're a listener out there and you're not an AMC aligned member, you don't know what did he just say? You don't know what the heck I'm going to talk about. And even if I covered it, I couldn't cover it in 10 podcasts, much less one. But the depth that is found in the 6 S's of patient and the patient compliance factors that come to bear is just a different level. I mean, it's mastery, it's genius level stuff. But here are heavyweights kidding themselves, thinking they're ready for this, and they can't even name the 6 S's much. So what does that tell you, Dr. Shannon? That tells you if you can't name them, what's the odds that you are walking around utilizing those components in a subconscious manner? I'm not talking about some checklist you're carrying around in your hand. You look down and go, okay, I want to cover special, super satisfied. I don't, all these S's. That's what, if you're having to work it off of a checklist, it is not in your subconscious that's just a part of your nature anymore. So that was where, I mean, that's a never kid yourself moment to me. It's alarming. It was both alarming and encouraging. The alarming factor of, holy mackerel, there's a lot of people that don't know that they don't know because they don't know what they don't know. Very encouraging to know that the AMC aligned family, the growth factors that are taking place across the board is second to none. It's uncomparable that you had over 100 members or nearly 100 members grow by $100,000 or more last year, that we had almost every AMC member had their best year ever last year, and yet most of them are scratching the surface of the genius that's inside the AMC system. But if you're one of those, and I'll throw it back to you here in just a second, if you're one of those doctors listening that have the audacity, the ignorance, I'm sorry to say, oh yeah, that AMC, they got some good procedures. I've got everything I wanted. I'm good to go. That's ignorant, because you're kidding yourself to think you are not at the level of the genius level of absorbing this content. But as long as you have that attitude, guess what? Is it bothering me? Does it hurt me? Does it hurt Tom Owen sitting here today? Nope. Does it hurt Shannon? Nope. Does it limit that person with that attitude's potential? It doesn't just limit it, it caps it. I mean, it's done. As long as you have an attitude of, I've learned what I need to learn, I've arrived. You haven't arrived until you met St. Peter. And the key to that principle, when I hear, and I never kid myself, is another principle that I heard years later, was you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. And if you have an attitude like that I've already arrived, then what's the point of me talking today? Right? People are kidding themselves.
Episode 37, Consistent Results.
There are those of us who are really hard on ourselves, right? I don't know if there's anybody else out there that's like that, but I'm also really hard on myself. And, Dr. Beveridge is one of those who's really hard on herself. And she kind of she saw herself as the bottom of the barrel chiropractor. And what she found out at the last summit is that not only is she not at the bottom of the barrel,
not even close.
No, not even close, but that she finally saw just how well she was doing and how much she has to be proud of and just how very blessed she is. So that's super fun. She also, chiropractors often spend so much time focusing on their practices that they don't spend a lot of time focusing on their own social needs and otherwise, but she actually recently found a group that she really feels like she fits in with. And that's made all the difference in her practice and in her day-to-day just motivation and attitude. So just so proud of her for having the persistence to do that and for staying in the game even when it was difficult. So,
that's a word that you just said. Persistence is a word that we could certainly unpack on another episode. But along with that persistence, when you were describing that situation, and I know some of that story, right? Mm-hmm. And there's so many other doctors out there that think they live on an island.
Yeah.
And that they think they're the only ones on that hard road. But it's those stories that it's the hard road that delivers the true prosperity. Because there's a difference of funds and wealth and such, but there's a different priceless, it's a priceless commodity of when that grows within you and you overcome.
Right.
So persistence, I have a word that I wrote in my book, The Made Up Mind. There's a whole chapter. And when you were talking about her, that it just clicked in my mind of like the whole chapter of have the tenacity of an oyster. Right? There's millions of clams, and they're just another mollusk. But the oyster takes the grit in the belly, the tenacity, the arduous process that it takes to take a grain of sand that churns and burns inside of them, and then it delivers this beautiful pearl. And it's the tenacity of an oyster that overcomes. And when you do that, you can produce something beautiful. And that's Dr. Rachel Beveridge, right? She's had a hard road. There's a lot of listeners out there right now. Hey, we've all been through the hard road. And by the way, if you don't think Tom Owen's been through the hard road, we'll take 5 episodes and talk about the things that have overcome. It was not a silver spoon moment, right? I know what it's like. I flat out know exactly what it's like to have the cupboards bare when I got home, not knowing where the next meal was coming from. I can tell you exactly where I was, when it was, but it takes tenacity and a persistence to continue to apply principles. See, principles will never fail you. And I know we want to get to the word consistency, right? Because folks, it doesn't matter where your starting point is. You can start at the bottom. You can be like I was below the bottom. I had to look up to see the bottom. But regardless, principles work whether you're at the bottom or you're at the mountaintop. Either way, you consistently apply principles. Principles never change. People and times will change, folks. Don't depend on the people and the times and the fads. But when you walk according to principles will never fail you. So that's something I wanted to kind of embark on today, because I know it's a hot topic, and especially as we go into the new year, if you're smart, you're planning for this new year. What's going to be different? I know Dr. McMurtry and I were talking about, make sure you're at all 6 summits. Be consistent with your application. Be consistent with your commitment. You take a certified training center at least 2 a year. Do what the mentors tell you, what your mentors are telling you and everything. But
those are the big rocks, though, right?
Right. But then it's the little rocks, the organization, it's the details, consistently working that process. It's very rarely, if somebody want to write something down from today's podcast, write this down. It's very rarely the most talented person in the room. When I look at all the very successful, the real successful people, and by the way, success is not measured by your bank account. I'm talking about the most prosperous people I've ever met. They're usually not the most talented. And a lot of times, in fact, most times, they're not the smartest person in the room. But the one that typically wins out is the most consistent. And speaking of consistent, I got one last shout out, and then I want to dive into that, because I know that was a topic that you are interested in talking about today, because consistency going into the new year will pay bigger dividends than any splash, chasing that golden nugget, thinking that's the one thing. No, it's the consistency, building consistency year after year after year after year that'll produce levels that you can't even imagine, right? And my shout out is Dr. Dominic Scaramosi. All right. Now, that's not the first time, probably not the first time he's had a shout out given to him. I love the guy. I'm proud of the guy. But here's the interesting point of the shout out. He also is projected to grow an additional $100,000 over where he did last year. But here's the neat thing about it. That's the 8th year, number 8th year in a row that he will have grown a minimum of $100,000 year over year. So 8 straight years growing up. So I don't know if you know
doing the math on that.
That's 0.8 of the way to $1 million, and we don't know where he started, right? So I'm super proud of him, but that's a great springboard into consistency. So Dr. Tara, I know that's something that you wanted to talk about, something that you see a lot in your coaching or your mentoring.
Well, and not only that, but you talked about it being end of the year, beginning of the year sort of time. And you talked about how you all had spoken about goals, or you'd focused on goals at some point. But what I find whenever people are setting goals is that if they don't have the plan and the daily activities set, right, when they're going to do them, how they're going to accomplish it every day, and then how they're going to lead their staff through that consistently, they never reach it except by accident, right? And, I've talked so much. There was an old tool that I got out and dusted off within this last year. And I called it the coach's vision board. A lot of people do the vision boards with the pictures and all that kind of thing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just a goals breakdown. We break it down into little pieces, right? Into the weekly goal, into the daily goal. And then we actually talk with our staff in the morning meeting about what it takes, right, to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So to just give you an example, right, if they have a patient visit goal and they want to see 800 patient visits a month, I'm going to break that down into, all right, well, how many do I need to see a week? And then how many do I need to see in a day, right? And that's what I'm going to talk about with my staff every day. All right, so we need to see, in order to make that happen, we need to see 50 today. Well, we have 42 on the schedule. How could we get to 50? Well, how can you get to 50, right? It's not the doctors to figure out. You never get any buy-in if you're just giving them all the answers, right? You hire smart people. You're hiring people you're developing into leaders. Now let them come up with the ways, come up with it together, right? So what are the ways, right? Well, we need 100% of our people to keep their appointments. We could have 2 new patients drop in, call in. We could get really focused and go through the details of what those new patients look like, right? We could generate 2 referrals. All right, well, who are the 2 people that we're going to, or more than 2, right? But who are 2 to 4 people we're going to talk to about who they've been trying to refer today? All right, well, has anybody missed their appointment in the last week? We could reschedule those people. What else could we do? Recalls. What else could we do? And it's connecting the small, consistent day-to-day pieces with the goals that give not only the doctor, but also the staff and the team that the tools it takes in order to really accomplish that goal. And what I find is that so many people set the goal and they dream about it, the dream and wish, instead of the actual do and do and do and do in the day-to-day. They get started one day, right? Woo, I'm going to do it. And the next day, the enthusiasm's gone. Yeah,
the power of positive thinking.
Exactly. Right? Exactly.
There is power behind positive thinking. If you don't set a high expectation in the first place, right, you're not going to, you it's like crabs in the bucket. You can't see over the rim. But there's a rule that which is what you're talking about. Well, okay, how are we going to get that? And by the way, that's probably one of the main reasons why a large percentage of listeners, people don't like goals, right? Because they're in the past, they don't really know what a goal is. A goal has to have a deadline. Then goal has to have a breakdown. In other words, if you got a 3-year goal or a 1-year goal, then it breaks down to daily and even down to hourly. I can actually get it down to the minutes, right? Of what are the little things that we're doing consistently that builds towards something that we can't understand. Because if you set a big enough goal, if you can see in your head, if you can figure out in your mind, okay, we're going to set a goal to, I don't know, collect $1,000 today. I don't know what it is. That's not a good goal. Shouldn't be around money in the first place. But if I'm going to set that goal, if I can figure out in my head how to do that, it's probably not a big enough goal.
Right.
You got to set goals larger than what you understand, and then you break it down to consistently applying various tools. But I love the way where you're going with that, because the reason folks don't like setting goals is they're used to not reaching them. Well, why don't we set 2023 to be something completely different? Why don't we set some audacious goals, some really big stuff? But it's not going to happen because we ran a bunch of marketing.
Right.
It's not going to happen because we bought this newfangled piece of equipment. Maybe we do that. That's not, I'm not against the newfangled piece of equipment, but it's not because of, it's going to be because of a process. And that's where the rubber meets the road. The people that want to really be successful in life are going to learn how to organize the chaos, and then structurally, consistently apply various principles, which is what you're talking about.
Episode 41, Moving the Needle.
I'm going to flip it to a doc that I just started working with. He just found AMC this past year, about half, not even half.
I believe that was at Fab.
I think that's right, halfway through the year.
I think I know who you're about to talk about.
Yeah.
The reason I said that.
Yeah, Dr. Connor Knapp.
Yeah.
Just close to my heart. He's a Gunstead guy. He's been, how do I say, pounding the turf for 4 years, working really, really hard. Got some stuff in his head that he's having to work through. But I was so proud of him in December, which typically anybody that jumps on board with AMC is going to say, what about December? Slowest month of the year, right? It's the excuse. Everybody's doing holidays and all this kind of stuff. This doc turned around and had his best month ever in December of this year. But here, I want to see if I can highlight this. He sent me a text message. We've been talking about, on our coaching calls, we've been talking about expectations and visualizations and not the rubbing crystals together stuff, right? We're just talking about how do you run a business and how do you cast a vision? How do you wear that vision, on your chest all day long as you're seeing patients? So we've been talking about expectations, and he sent me this text on the 31st of December. And he said, it couldn't be a better week for expectations and having the right mindset. Monday, I had 3 cancellations, and I said, I'll get 3 more to make up for it. And I got 3 later that day and 2 more later that week. Now, some of you docs with the big numbers, that doesn't mean much. For this doc, that is a huge breakthrough, and I couldn't be more proud of him. I'm so excited. He also texted, I was saying I'd get another new patient, and I got 2. And I said, no one will refer soon. I'm sorry. And I said, 1 will refer soon. And he did after the first visit. So he's captured that referral. We've been talking about that as an expectation, which we're probably going to hear in a little bit. And I also got a prepay to finish off the year and our best month ever. I'm excited to get going in 2023.
Makes me think of, spinning your wheels. And an old analogy, a couple of analogies came to mind when you were talking about that, is blessed are those that go in circles, for they shall be called wheels.
Yeah.
Right? Don't confuse motion with progress. And the poor guy's been out there grinding, spinning the wheels in the mud or the snow, however you want to do it. And until they get traction, and that's what's happening, his efforts never faltered him. His efforts never failed him. But if you're applying and not getting the traction, and the principles allow for the traction, and he's starting to see it, he's starting to experience it. And, when you're moving out of the mud or moving out of the snow, you just, what the key is to get that car moving.
Momentum.
Right? Momentum. And he is starting to see, and he's going to blaze a new trail for sure.
I can't wait. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, I'm excited for him because I remember he did come on board at Fab and talking about just 2022, putting it in the rearview mirror. I mean, I want to give shout outs to the AMC Align team. You know, I always talk about the calmness of a duck on the water, right? Duck on the water up top looks nice and calm. Everything's nice and easy, but below he's paddling like hell, right? And that was a lot of the AMC Align team because 2022 was a lot of work. There was a lot of work going on behind the scenes because if folks hadn't figured it out, we went through a rebrand process after, over 25 years, almost 27 years in business. AMC will always be AMC. The heart of AMC will never change. But that was a lot of work behind the scenes. And we launched here in the last 2 years. I was just talking to Dr. Zach Wilson over the weekend, and he made a remark to me and said, he goes, just the work that's been done over the last couple of years. He goes, I've never, ever, and he's been around for 15 years. He says, I've never seen AMC or Align so poised with so much to offer. He goes, there is not anything, there is no way. He goes, doesn't matter what they're practicing, what their philosophy, what their technique. He goes, AMC and Align has the answer for any chiropractor, for any desire or any goal. And that stands to be true because just think about some of the programs that have been launched in the last couple of years. CA coaching's been a lot longer than 2 years, but I mean, that moves the needle with every office it touches. Vitalio and all the nutritional components that team has brought. And, the ease of implementation. I know you're working over there with Zing Performance, Dr. Greg, and let's not disregard what was launched in 2022, which is the Apex program. Really, talking about setting expectations with Dr. Connor Knapp, the expectation is every member should be striving and setting an expectation to be in that Apex program. Because if you want to take your thinking and your life, not your career, your just overall life to a completely different level, a different stratosphere of concepts and the way of thinking and the way of living in abundance, you got to be in that program. And so I'm super proud of the Blue Coat team. Nobody says no. Everyone steps to the plate and says whatever it takes. So super proud of this team. But, we hit on a couple of things as we were going through those honorable mentions, those shout outs. The Eliases, there was a change, a transformation somewhere in there, right? Their mentor, if they had the microphone, they would talk about something changed when it came to referrals, right? Obviously, you were just talking about setting an expectation or referral expectation with Dr. Connor Knapp. Referrals is it, right? I mean, if we want to wrap this show into and talk about a topic that's every chiropractor can relate with, again, doesn't matter where you graduated, doesn't matter your philosophy, doesn't matter your technique, it doesn't matter the size of your practice. I bet every chiropractor out there would agree that they would much rather see a patient that's been referred to them rather than any type of marketing. Doesn't matter what kind of marketing doing. Doesn't matter if it's, you're out there doing screenings, you're out there doing health talk, community outreach, or you're spending $2,500, $3,000 a month on social media. The better quality patient comes from the referrals. That's why everybody that walks across the stage at any one of the campuses, they walk across there with this idea in their head that their dream practice is a self-sustaining, stress-free, referral-based practice. So why don't we do that, Dr. Greg? Because, that's obviously something very close to your heart when it comes to referral practicing, because that's when you get the referral practicing mechanism down, there's a confidence that takes place every time the calendar changes to another month, right? If you're buying new patients, if you're constantly marketing for new patients, it's hard to go into the next month knowing that you have to hit some type of status, a stat line, because the overhead turns over. The overhead turns over every 30 days, and then you got to be able to reproduce. And without that referral mechanism, that confidence going in every month of going, well, I can expect I'm seeing 300 patient visits, or I'm seeing 100 patient visits a week, whatever it is. When we're operating the way you and I know how to operate a clinic, we can go into each and every month expecting a certain number of referrals if we got all those components working. So let's talk about referrals and referral practicing, and then how it relates to the chiropractor. And even I heard you mention the right starters a while ago. Mm-hmm. Most chiropractors are not experiencing this stuff. Their colleagues in school that are coming out and graduating with them, folks, make no mistake about it. There's only there's about 20 to 25% of the graduates that will never ever utilize the diploma.
I know
it's crazy. And then we have upwards to a 50% default rate or failure rate within the first 3 years after graduation. I mean, so they need to hear about it. So let's talk about it from both sides of the coin.
It's important to note on that, though, that's never happened inside of AMC with the Right Start program. That those failures, those default rates. That's why we can do what we can do.
That's very right. That's a good point. 28 years. We're going into our 28th year. Is that right? I don't know. I'm getting so old I can't remember all of it. But in 28 years, we still have 0 defaults.
Yeah.
We haven't had one.
Weren't those great subjects? I'd forgotten some of those things that we had shared on those topics earlier. And, there's always so much ground to cover, and there's always so much to talk about. And we're enthusiastic about being able to do that with you. In fact, Tom and I and Ryan, we represent a whole team of people who are enthusiastic. And I want to say before we sign off, I want to say how much I appreciate the AMC aligned mentors and the work that they do. Mentors, certified training center folks, instructors, support staff. You will never find a more dedicated, more enthusiastic group of people who believe in chiropractic, who believe in our mission, who believe in the power that is inside that human body. And to all of those people who you don't get to see or hear from on the podcast on a regular basis, I want you to know that we value you, we appreciate you, and we respect you so much. And there's just no way we could impact the lives that we impact without you and the enthusiastic work that you do. If you're listening and you need that enthusiasm, you need that accountability, you need what we have to offer, there's no better time than right now. And you can find us at amcfamily.com. And if you are currently an AMC Aligned member, we're really looking forward to the year that is to come as well. So please remember to hit us up on that mailbag at amcfamily.com. Until we talk next time, this is Dr. Shannon McMurtry, your host, wishing you the very best, and God bless.